on discovering the truth. We're here again on this new platform to discuss various issues and challenges with reverts and new Muslims. And we are bringing together even conversations that allow people from all backgrounds, all sects, all walks of life to learn about the truth, about Islam. And each week we have a different subject that we will tackle. And you are more welcome to join the show in the conversation. This is a live TV show which will invite all of you to have your comments, questions, or any queries that you have to myself or my guest tonight. And I'd love to firstly invite our Sheikh on the show, who is Sheikh Shirazi. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Hayder Shirazi.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we also have Kathryn Jones. Assalamu alaikum, Kathryn.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much. You know, it's an amazing show tonight because I'm here based in the UK, London. We have our Sheikh all the way from Canada. And on the other side of the world, we have our Kathryn, who is in Adelaide in Australia. SubhanAllah, this is amazing. This is how our world is connected today. Even with the pandemic, even with the current situation, we are able to have amazing guests with us tonight. And I would love for all of you to please join in if you wish, or send in your questions via email or any of the platforms that you're watching from. I know that even our guests are also watching from various parts of the world. Please do join in and welcome tonight. We are discussing new Muslims and how they have conversations with their family members, especially about the religion that they've come into. I know that it probably changes over time, and the relationship, especially at the beginning when we have a discussion with our family members and friends, is very, very difficult. We don't always come into Islam on the same level and platform as everybody else, and we are all on different stages and phases in life. So yes, we're going to be listening to our guests tonight, and we're also going to be hearing some of the solutions and practical tips to address this. Before I come on to you, Kathryn, I want to quickly address the Sheikh to ask you firstly, how important is it for a revert to have these religious conversations, especially to their family members? Can you hear me, Sheikh?
Yeah, you were disconnected for a while. Now I can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, my question was, how important is it for new Muslims to have that initial conversation with their family members about the change of religion and going into a new faith, especially coming into Islam?
Yeah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Are you hearing me, Sheikh? No,
Yes,
I can hear you. Yeah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Well, basically, communication is that beautiful blessing that Allah has given to the human being, and the best way how he can communicate with every member of the society, and especially the loved ones who are around you. And if there is anything that happens, any major change or any even minor change that comes across in our life, that needs to be addressed, that needs to be said to others. And if there are members of the family who are living with us, they need to know what I'm going through, at what stage I am. So we have been created definitely not, it isn't as such that without a purpose, there is a purpose we have been created. So creation would be in waste and a vain if there wasn't any purpose to it. So one of the things that really would help over here, and as the topic you had mentioned for this show is, we have been created, so who is the creator? There is a sense of ownership, there is a sense of belonging, and I belong to someone. Now, the respect, the honor towards the creator and the creation, how do I define him? How am I defined? And was it just a bang that gave me existence, or was I transformed from a monkey, for example? Then I used to jump and climb on the trees, and now jumps and flies in the planes. Is that not respect? Is that respect that a man deserves? Or is it in reality degradation of man? So there is a vacuum within me, or that there is a missing link within me, and that when we see there's an instinct within myself towards someone strong, mighty, great, kind, owning, caring, providing, educating. And that is that whole religion factor that comes in, that faith and belief. That I have faith in someone who is very caring, very forgiving. And when we see Quran also, that's the same thing. The whole thing, it's communication. Now, when I have that faith within me and I've moved to that faith and that belief, it's not necessarily a person has to switch from a religion to a religion, convert or revert to get to this feeling. It could be anyone, any point in his life. So he feels that he belongs to someone, and that needs to be portrayed, that needs to be communicated, that needs to be said to someone. So whether it's a convert, whether it's a revert, beseecher, repenter, lost, sinner, disobedient, all that is common in them all, there is a missing link. And that missing link needs to be found. That voice within myself, that call within me, that cry within me needs to be addressed. So I know myself, I find myself, my existence I know, my sense of belonging I understand, that sense of ownership, who do I belong to? And now that I've found and tuned myself, I need to know who he is. When I find myself, when I found him, so then that needs to be said to others. This is what my present situation is, where I am, and others also should know. And the way how Islam, or you can say common sense, has addressed this, it's so easy to digest. It's so easy to understand. Whosoever he be, I'm late, for example, I have come polluted. I have come with so many liabilities. I've got so much wrong on me. Now, how will he, who is the owner, he will deal with me? Will he accept me? So, all these are questions that I have within myself. And I get the answers to all of them very easily when I have something bonding towards myself. Now, the Almighty God, He says that you've come, welcome on board. You are in need. I'll give you a double support system. Like for example, when you go to hospitals and there is an emergency in the A&E, everyone is in need. Everyone is in an emergency there. Everyone needs help and assistance. But the priority is given to those who are in acute need, those who are vulnerable. The Almighty God, He also treats us in the similar way. So whether he's a convert, whether he's a revert, whether he's a beseecher, repenter, seeker, finder, sinner, disobedient, whoever he is, there's a missing link, and he, the Almighty, says, "You've come to me, you are in need, labbaik to you twice." And to ordinary people, he says labbaik just once. So there's a communication between God and us, and that has to be somehow translated and interpreted to others that this is the reason, this is the phase I'm going through. And when you put these things properly and nicely and sensibly, everyone accepts. And it's such simple to be accepted as well. That is
Thank you, Sheikh.
what, yeah,
Thank you, Sheikh.
thank
We
you.
will come back to you. That's a beautiful way of describing it, especially in a philosophical way. I want to come to you now, Kathryn. Um, the reality, unfortunately, isn't exactly what we all hold ourselves to be. We have many people that we are facing that have differences in their own sort of ideas and fears or concerns with regards to looking at the faith of Islam for many reasons as well. So, what's the reality that you've come across in your experience, whether it's from yourself or other reverts, when they are approaching this conversation, especially initially, to their family members? And how is that received?
There's a variety of receptions. for many of us, we actually become undercover Muslims for quite a while because of the fear of that conversation. And I know I was like that initially. I fasted my first Ramadan without anyone knowing I had actually become a Muslim. It was quite interesting navigating that and somehow declining food during the day when people offered it and finding excuses because I wasn't ready to be able to share. I didn't understand it enough myself to be able to express anything to anyone else. It's another reason why it's important to give women time to put the hijab on, because the minute you do that, you've declared to the world the choice that you've made, and you need to be ready to answer the questions. So my personal experience was one of well, it does say in the Quran, they will never be happy with us until we convert back to their ways. I would say that 26 years later, it probably still holds true. So even though they've come to accept it, they would still prefer I wasn't a Muslim. So the reality is a lot of families find it very hard to accept. And especially as the rhetoric against Muslims has got worse over the years, I have even seen that influence, family members that were a little more accommodating, becoming less, a bit more rigid in their thinking towards us. So it's actually a very difficult conversation to have. I tried to avoid it as much as I possibly could. In the end, it wasn't a very good discussion, to be honest. And many experienced the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. I had a previous guest that even came on the show saying exactly the same thing, that even as, as a new Muslim, if you take your Shahada, does not mean that overnight everything just happens the way, you born into it. It does take time. And I think this conversation is so important that we're having right now to make people aware that even though we have the rules and the guidelines, there is a set period for us to be able to, also be accepting of somebody else's response. Just because you also have taken that sort of lead, you've taken that sort of, stage in your life where you are still figuring out, and it does take you time, maybe months, even years, for you to come to, from the Shahada to the fact of, practicing almost everything, which even, to be honest, existing born Muslims cannot do themselves as well. So, it becomes something that we do need to speak about, because these conversations may seem so easy, but that's why we have people like yourself to highlight the reality, to make it aware that actually we need to have a lot more empathy, and we cannot just state what needs to be said, but we need to navigate around the reality and bring up solutions so that we existing Muslims as well become more accommodating, become more respectful and understanding of the actual challenges that you're facing, which is so traumatic, especially when it comes to your family members who may not even accept you for years. Who, I know another guest said that she had to be one way with her daughter, when she's at home, and then go and, be something else another way. And that's how it is, because we cannot also leave our family members. We have to still have that connection built with us. Sheikh, what do you think are some of the solutions that we can provide? I mean, I know this is a new platform, and I know there's many platforms out there, and this is not anything to do with any sect or background or some sort of sort of discrimination or judgment against anyone. But we are only just starting to really hear the voices of our new Muslims and their real stories, because everything has been in the background. So what do we need to do as especially Muslim leaders and mosques and centers to help the transition, to help even create families that's going to be, the new family as well, while they're still in transition with their old one?
Well, those who come to me here now, from the point of Shahada and until they start practicing, it isn't as such that the moment that Shahadat is said, immediately you have to start practicing and all of it. No, it doesn't. It will take time, a few months, especially for prayers, and they have to digest it first of all, and it may take a few months for them to settle and slowly get things on board until they become stronger and more practicing. We do have instances and examples during the times of Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, and all of these we have somehow it has been mentioned. For example, during the time of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, someone embraced, and now he is a Muslim. Now the neighbor, he comes and says, "It's morning. Let's go and say our Fajr prayers." He takes the new Muslim to the mosque and says, "Here, come on, say your prayers in the morning." He prays. He wants to go home and have a sleep nap. He says, "Why go? It's makruh to sleep by tuluain from this time until the sunrise. To sit in the mosque and do some more du'as and taqib." And then when he wants to go after that, he's tired, and then he comes at Zohar also. "Come on, let's go to the mosque again, Masjid Namaz and prayers." And after a while goes back, and then Maghrib and Isha. And in the morning when he comes the next day, "Let's go to the mosque." He says, "Your deen, your religion is good, but good for someone who has nothing to do." So that was a drawback. So you don't go, you don't go and push people and put them under. Now this is love and based upon muhabbat, how a person slowly, gradually, he takes things on board. And even those who are born Muslims and have been practicing families practicing Islam to the max, even they don't have so much. It takes time at the age of 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe slowly they get so much slowly on board. And that is why we have in Deen that it's a continuous and a constant process. You have to slowly take things on board. Now, someone who has converted and for him everything is new, you can't expect someone who is in the ICU to take everything on board. He has to come to the ward first and then recovery, then go home and slowly take everything. This Deen
Mm-hmm.
also, it's exactly the same. You can't board and exert him with so much of things to practice. Or, for example, when it comes to family members, how you deal with them. Again, another instance that we have from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. A young lad, he embraces, he becomes a Muslim, comes to Imam as-Sadiq and says, "What do I do? My parents, they are Christians. And how do I deal with them? Both of them very old." Imam says, "You practice your deen, and as long as they are not contaminated with alcohol and pork, you eat with them, you be with them, you serve them." And he does that according to the prescription that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam gives him. After a while, the mother, she says that, "I think you have switched. Your faith is not the same as it was. Because what I see in you are the practices and the preachings of Jesus. What are you now?" He says, "I am a follower of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, who is a descendant of the Apostle Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam." The mother says, "Whatever he has said is exactly what Jesus has been telling us. I also want to be just like you. Teach me, train me." She also embraces, and then because the son was so caring and looking after the mother, cleaning, washing, feeding, and everything, all the services were being provided by the son to both the parents. And then she says, "Teach me how you pray." He teaches her how to pray, and the first prayers that she offered were the Zohar prayers, after which she died. So that is as a result of that interaction, that communication. And then, as you mentioned, that you have to be an undercover Muslim, the same thing was here in this case as well. This young lad who had embraced also was an undercover. He didn't disclose his identity until they found out. Generally, that is the case. We don't need to hype, we don't need to magnify. Well, we have things that are taught to us by the Ma'sumin alayhim salam. You don't need to talk a lot. One of the teachings and one of the akhlaqiyat, one of the ethical manners that are told to us is to be quiet. Samt. We have a chapter in akhlaq, it's called Samt, that is to keep quiet. That is, lesser words be uttered, more in practice be shown. So that is what is being mentioned over here as well. So for every one of us,
Lovely.
it doesn't really mean to the converts or the reverts. It applies to every one of us because every one of us somehow is in a phase where there's something missing in our life. So that missing link needs to be corrected and connected to the Almighty Allah, which takes time. And towards the end of our life, we come to a point. Then we know that how we should have been living. Our Ustad Ayatullah Mishkini, he used to say that one life is not enough. We need to be given another life so that what we have learned from this first one, we can apply in the second one and be better people.
Wow, listening to you is so enlightening, so refreshing, and I love all the stories. And it really does highlight, not just to our new Muslims, but even existing Muslims and to everyone, the real understanding and the real undertaking to this wonderful faith. And you've made it sound so easy and so simple. And moving on to Kathryn, what were the first conversations that you actually started having with your family members? And the other question I have for you is, do you think that there is a difference with the conversation depending on the reason why you even come into Islam? Because, I mean, a lot of people in their mature years, they might choose the religion for the religion, but a lot of young females that I know, for example, they might come into the religion because they've actually just met somebody who is Muslim and they've just taken it on because it's easy for marriage. Not to say it's a bad thing, but again, the education's not there and they've just taken on something. Actually, before I come on to you, I've actually got a caller, and before we answer that question, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sister. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and sister Kathryn Jones. Salam to all of you. Now, Sheikh, actually, you are discussing about this convert case, like sister converted into Islam. Now, if it was a man or a boy, he can hide his identity. For a woman, it's very difficult because she has to wear a hijab. Now, in front of the parents, that's fine. I mean, she doesn't have to do it. But she might have her cousins or friends or a father's friend in the house, and they are now mahram. So she really has gone through a lot of hard drive to become a Muslim, and now she probably has to decide, how am I going to hide my identity? Because as soon as you wear the hijab, naturally you are declaring to yourself, hey, look, I'm something else. I'm not what I used to be. So for a woman, I think it's a very, very difficult, and she can't break the law because she has taken it with wholeheartedly. Now, in that case, what can a woman do? Thank you very much. Shukran.
Thank you so much for your call. That's an absolute wonderful observation there. Kathryn, I'll bring it over to you before I go on to the chef. What was your response to that caller?
First of all, I'd just like to thank them for acknowledging the challenge and the struggle that it is, because often it's not acknowledged, and there's a lot of expectation on us to be very, like the perfect Muslim, that in order to really confirm that we were serious, that we became a Muslim, we have to be better than the born Muslims. And so we get a lot of judgment and criticism. And also, yes, we're juggling this whole situation with family members. There's a lot of family members get offended because they're not mahram, they are cousins or, uncles that are married into the family, people that you've been very close with, that you've hugged before, that you're used to all just being together as a family, and suddenly now you have to cover yourself in front of them, distance yourself from them in order to be pleasing to Allah. And they get offended by that, really also insulted by it. So it does cause a lot of grief in families, and then other family members will join in. So I really appreciated the acknowledgement of the brother of really how much that is difficult for a Muslim woman, because yes, as soon as we put the hijab on, we're no longer undercover. In terms of his question of what do we do about that, it's very much a challenge, and I think each person's situation has to be taken into consideration. For myself, I became a Muslim because it was the choice to embrace Islam, nothing to do with another person. In fact, it was just me and the Quran and no other Muslims when it came to me choosing to become a Muslim. So I wasn't influenced by Muslims. It was reading the Quran on my own that brought me to this point. So I was very convicted to practicing properly. But because I didn't have good guidance on how to navigate that, on how to do that in a good way, I caused a lot of damage in a lot of relationships by being really hard and fast to the rules and jumping straight in, trying to be the best Muslim I could be. without the awareness of the harm that was causing to the relationships. And now that I know better, there is relief to know that I can do things differently. That doesn't mean I'm saying take my hijab off. It just means I can be a better person towards those relatives. But also regret that I didn't understand that sooner and wish that I'd had Muslims around me that helped me navigate that. Instead, I had Muslims around me saying, you have to do this, you have to do that, and being really pushy. And so I damaged a lot of relationships in the process.
Thank you for your honesty. I mean, this is exactly why we have the show, so that we can actually educate and have these kinds of insights. And for you sharing like this, it's so difficult and heartbreaking even hearing you speak. And I'm sure even though you've overcome things, like you said, it takes time. It takes sometimes a lot more years and months to even fix what damage has been done over even a short period of time. So especially when it comes to your family members, these are the people that, you know, we have years of relationships that we've built, and over something with faith, and then having to juggle with, you know, family relationships and having these conversations is not an easy thing to do. And I really do thank you for sharing that. Sheikh, what would be your guidance for new Muslims or even existing Muslims to come together, to give them the right kind of information, to have the right kind of attitudes even, and not to put the pressure, like Kathryn has mentioned, it actually has caused a lot of damage. What would be your sort of like response to that?
Well, that's what we learn from Quran and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. It is a difficult situation for those who have embraced, and also with this new world order, especially our children who are going to schools, and especially the new generation born in the millennium and after the millennium, they are going through a very tough time. So may that be someone who has embraced and entered Islam, or even these children who are being brought up and raised and grown in this present situation, they are also going through this very difficult situation. Now, what the yeah, it is difficult that especially for ladies, they have to be covered and that hijab has to be observed, and also they need to be practicing. So it's not going to be easy. Now, what we see and look back into the history, for example, wife of Pharaoh, she is the queen of that time. She is that first lady, and she has embraced. She has switched. She is the believer of Prophet Musa. Now, being the first lady, and also with all those royalties and riches and everything around her, but still she is firm on her faith. As a result of which, she is given a capital punishment, and the punishment is also the most severe that Pharaoh gives, and that is that she has to be nailed in the ground, 4 nails, 4 limbs of her hands and feet be tied to the ground, and a boulder be rolled on her chest, and she be crushed to death. And she was killed in that very brutal way. Now, when Allah wants to talk about women, she says that what a great position and rank she has. That she, in those very desperate moments, that she says, God, make me a house next to yours. Rabbibni li baytan indaka fil jannah. I want a house next to you. That is that height of love. Now, it is difficult, and what we want to say over here, and what Quran says that in these difficult circumstances, the rules they don't change. People they get this wrong many a times. They say that if, for example, I'm hungry, I need to feed myself. If I don't, I'll kill myself. It's going to be harmful, so I can eat whatever I want. It doesn't happen that way. That what is haram remains haram even in those emergency and 911 situations. So changing that, or for example, lust that Allah has given. People they say that that's God given, so I can just do whatever I want, even if it is haram. It doesn't happen that way. That haram will be haram all the time. May that be lust, may that be food. So here what we do is that we ask Allah never to test us with these difficult tests. If you look back into Surah Baqarah, the last ayah, there says that God, don't test me. My intention is that I want to be with you, stand with you, be obedient to you. He will pave the ways such beautifully before you that all these difficult times that we have in front of us, they will never come towards us. Says in that, مَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. He will find you an outlet. If I am sincere in what I want and what I desire and I want to practice, he says, and he has promised, and he never lies. He says, I will find you an outlet. So, like the example that was mentioned for Hazrat Asiya, wife of Fir'aun, he found an outlet. She remained practicing until she was found. And then the same thing happens to those who have converted, those who, even those Muslims who are living in some difficult countries where they are going through a very tough time. It's the same thing, it makes no difference whatsoever. So everyone is going through this tough time, especially in this day and age that we are in. Especially the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they are going through the toughest time because it's that rule of Iblis on one side and the rule of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the other side. And they know that those who are the true followers of the Prophet are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. So they have to go through the toughest time. So those who are embracing and becoming a follower of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, they go through the same because they get connected to that same connection, same link. So every one of us is going through that tough time, but those who have embraced and entered, they have a tougher test to give. But then if that mindset is that God, I've done it for you, he finds an outlet. So you give that outlet for him to make it, for him to form it, and he forms it in a very beautiful way, and he does it.
Thank you so much
Yattaqillah.
for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. Again, it really does also makes me think about my takeaway on that is, obviously gaining that mindset, the psychology, and understanding your faith very well, and continuously striving through the challenges and the struggles. Kathryn, when it comes to having these conversations, what would you like to see that's improved, especially in the Muslim community? I know you work yourself and you've given yourself the platform to be able to help because of your own challenges, and you want to make it easy for others. So what would be your guidance that you would like to see, and you would like to highlight here, so that people can actually take these things upon themselves and spread it with solutions and practical ways and tips, that whether it is a new Muslim coming into it, what do they need to be aware of, or what is it that new Muslims need to do, or existing Muslims? Sorry, we do have another caller online. Salamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sister, come back.
Thank you for calling
Now,
again. What would you like
I
to
think
say?
my name is Azad. Sorry. Did you ask my name?
No, but thank
Hello?
you so much for sharing that. Thank you, Brother Azad.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Now, I actually wanted to add something to it. Sister Kathryn, probably, I don't know how she entered Islam. Was it all of a sudden, or did she prepare how to introduce her thoughts and her ways into the family first? I mean, there was one case, I know a lady, that is going quite a long time ago, when I had a shop. And she all of a sudden got interested in Islam and everything, So she was talking to me. I mean, she was a regular customer. And she said, I don't know, because my mother is very religious and I don't know how she'll take it. So I said, look, the best thing is introduce yourself very gradually. Don't give her a shock that she says, oh my God, what has happened to my daughter? So then I started giving her some DVDs at that time. And I said, why don't you do one thing and play this? At that time, Islam was something that's very fearful. Come on, don't even get near them because they will probably kill you or something like that. So I gave her video DVDs, and I said, gradually just play and enroll your mom as well to say, okay, look, mom, I mean, people are talking about this thing, but I saw this video, and the video is completely the opposite. And
Yes.
I'm interested to search into it. And you see, I mean, after that, she came and borrowed more DVDs and everything. And believe me, the fear which was there, just disappeared. Even the mother got probably interested and said, no, come on, I mean, they had a discussion and they said what has been talked in the media and everything, it doesn't seem, I mean, is that true or is it a lie? Somebody is lying. So
No, that's very true.
then,
What we see and hear in the media is very different. And the information that we have to provide, even as existing Muslims, to make ourselves also not just part of the community, but outside our community, in order to actually extract the real information. But again, there's a problem that a lot of new Muslims come into the religion and they themselves are disappointed by the practices of the existing Muslims. So we have the media and we also have the existing Muslims that don't necessarily portray and represent what needs to be. Thank you so much for your call. Inshallah, we will address some of your points. It's really interesting that you have addressed these things because that was going to be something I was going to come into as well. Kathryn, what's your response to this?
Yeah, it is very easy to get disillusioned when you kind of expect that every Muslim you come across is going to know their religion and practice their religion. And when that's not the case, it's a bit confusing because you're coming into it new and fresh and you're expecting them to be your role models. So that was definitely a stage of disillusionment that I went through. In terms of DVDs and things like that, that would never have worked with my family. So we have to also understand that each family is different, each circumstance is different. My mother had a very difficult time with religion herself, and so doesn't want anything to do with religion at all. And so any kind of conversation around religion is an awkward one, a difficult one. So it's not the same in every situation. And if I tie it back into where you were leading with the question that you were asking me before the call about what can we do differently, I think that engaging us in the community as being part of the community would be very helpful for a couple of reasons. What I see is a lot of the Muslims who have migrated to my country, they're making a mess of things because they don't know the way of our culture and the way of our country, and we've got something that we can contribute in that. So invite us to be a part of it so that we can share with you the way you can navigate things within our country. But then also, listen to the challenges, like this conversation that we're having here, to see that it isn't black and white. It isn't, the way that it seemed, because a lot of the attitudes that I experienced, well, it's the joke I make is that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were all converts, reverts, whatever you want to call us. And they had 13 years to learn to love Allah before really we started getting all the rulings of halal and haram. We're lucky if we get 13 seconds. And it's like haram this and halal this, and like these are all the rules. And it's like, seriously, what did I just join? So like taking the example of the time of the Prophet ﷺ and give us time, and nurture us, but also include us. Because honestly, I've been a Muslim 26 years. I don't feel that I belong in my local Muslim community, but I also don't feel that I belong really in my Australian community that I came from either. I feel that I'm somewhere stuck in the middle. It doesn't bother me anymore like it did a long time ago, but now I've just come to terms with it. But it has had an effect on my children. So the children of converts also go through a whole lot of identity struggles, because often the only extended family they know are their non-Muslim extended family. They don't also get included into the community because they're considered like not full Muslims or something. I'm not quite sure how it works. But they too my kids have really struggled to find where their place is. And the answer is always, as we've already started this whole thing with this conversation, is listen. When we're invited, we sit there while everyone speaks another language, completely bored, having no clue what's going on. Talk to us. Have a conversation with us. Maybe have a conversation in English so we can participate, so that we can all get to know each other. And this is the way forward in where we can come up with solutions together that would work for everybody, inshallah.
Wow. I mean, you've highlighted something that I hear a lot, unfortunately. I've had even cases where people have not had the strength and have not had the support and have not had the faith behind them, that unfortunately they have turned away from Islam completely. Firstly, by the way in which they're being received in the community. Secondly, by, like you said, not being included. And I think as much as we want to keep our identities and our cultures, I always say that it's more important to be inviting and open to everyone, because this is what the religion is, and not to be so patriotic to your own country, because you are actually excluding many. And especially the ones that are living in the West, they are so fearful of losing their identity that they stick so close by their own, not realizing that there's actually a community out there that's coming in to embrace this faith, and they're not being included for many reasons. What are the main things that they're not being included in? Do you think it's like, part of conversations, part of the community, marriage? What is it exactly that you've seen that's not been the inclusion? What would be the kind of things that you would like to see, Kathryn?
It's a good question. I've been a Muslim 26 years. I've probably attended the maximum of 2 or 3 aqiqahs, maybe 2 weddings. So I just don't get invited. I'm just not thought of because I don't fit within their circle. So it's exactly what you have described about that kind of sticking to their own group. So where do we fit? So if we marry into a group that is a quite established group, then we get absorbed into that cultural group. But then we're expected to become culturally the same as them to be accepted. And so we lose our own identity and feel quite lost. I married into cultural groups that there wasn't a significant community. So I didn't have that secondary community to latch onto. And so I guess that's part of the issue, was that there weren't many people from that background that my husband is from in our city for me to be connected to others. But the key thing is also it's hard. I've lived in other countries, so I know it's hard to speak another language. But definitely making the effort to have conversation, making the effort that to not just ignore us and speak in your own language, because even when we are absorbed into those communities, we don't fit. I remember when we were fundraising to build our masjid on the street that I live on, we would have these meetings. They'd invite me along because I had the computer skills and everything. And at the end of the meeting, I'd say, so what have you volunteered me to do? Because the whole meeting would be in Arabic and no one would actually discuss anything with me. So I say, well, at the end, what jobs did you give me to do? I don't know what you gave me to do. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, the fact that you've been a Muslim for so many years and it's still an issue, I'm really glad that you're on the show. And inshallah, it has highlighted. I would love to have more conversations with you. This platform, Sincere Community Services, is something which is ongoing. We're not just inviting guests. We want to have, continuous collaborations with the guests and people that are watching and people that want to learn. And inshallah, all we need to do right now is to have more conversations to bring about this awareness. I'm not here to bash anyone. I'm not here to call people out. But if the shoe fits, then there you go. We need to literally reflect. We need to look. We need to have friendships outside our background, culture, language, color, wherever it comes from, age even, because there is a real problem in the community. And I hear that and I see that continuously. And unfortunately, now that I'm on this platform and it's being highlighted live on TV for everyone to hear, there is no excuse to ignore this. Thank you so much, Kathryn, for your time. We do have a few more minutes. Would you like to have one sort of last words before I ask the Sheikh before we end? Firstly, you, Kathryn.
Sure. I guess just thank you for having the opportunity to have these conversations, because it is part of the solution. If you don't know there's a problem, then you can't find the answers, can you? So being able to share it opens the possibility for people to think about what can we do differently. So Jazakallah khair for this opportunity.
No, it's my pleasure to have you. If it wasn't for people like yourself to speak, then we don't have these kinds of platforms to even raise these awareness. So actually, it is my pleasure and my honor. Thank you so much, Kathryn. And finally, we have a minute left, Sheikh. What would you like to close before the end of the show?
Just 1 minute, 60 seconds?
Yes, unfortunately. I
Okay,
know
now
you could go on for a lot longer, but yeah, that's why
yeah.
the show is amazing because it does bring a lot and we need a lot more time. But inshallah, we will have this
Mhm.
again.
Well, every case is different. Now, that what is very beautiful over here is that there are some basic needs and requirements for that apply to every case. That what is really beautiful over here is that this network that is created by the Almighty God, that merciful God, is amazing. It's beautiful. He brought us all together. You from the North Pole, me from the South Pole, in this part of the world. I have a weekly session on prayers. Someone called and got connected to that session, and then she called me. She's in her early teens, and she was crying and crying. I said, "What happened?" Says, "I am a Muslim by birth, but there is no connection to Islam in my family at all. No one practices, nothing whatsoever. And I don't know how to connect to my God. I don't know how to pray. I don't know who my God is. I don't know anything." And she was in flares. I never heard anyone cry that much, only because she's not able to communicate to her God. That was very touching, and that was amazing. A lesson to myself first. And so there are thousands of cases like that, and people, they want to get connected, and this connection is brought by that merciful God. Now, for this tough time that all of you and everyone who goes through, the Almighty, He says that uh, I will cover them in my mercy, shelter them, and all the wrong they have done will be deleted. So a person, when he says ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, it's control, alt, and delete. Everything done negative, until that moment, it's all removed. That is out of the mercy of the merciful God. That's how He compensates. He says that you are going through a tough time. I know that. And whoever Jahada fina lanahdiyannahum subulana. All this is jihad. All this is a struggle that everyone goes through, especially you. Says that definitely the reward is there, ajr is there, and He compensates in a very beautiful way. Maybe this generation and your children, they may be going through this tough time, but the future, it's beautiful. The future is beautiful, and that
Inshallah.
is definite. Allahumma ana, Allahu Maulana, Allah is our Lord. And when we have that faith and for Him we have stood, then definitely He supports. There's no doubt in that.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your closing statement, Sheikh. I really appreciate Kathryn. As much as we have to struggle, we can still make changes now. And inshallah, it starts with us, with you, with me, making these changes, reflecting, and having these kinds of conversations, and also practicing it by transforming ourselves. And let's be open in our faith, not just only with the rules, but understanding that so we can actually welcome, especially the new Muslims, into our homes, into our friendship groups and circles. Inshallah, you've enjoyed this conversation, and we will be back.